Hi, and welcome to the Diamond Report for Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. This is your host, Doug Diamond. Well, I think in the last video I said I'd be back in a day or two with a La Palma update, and it's now been a week. So my apologies. That's just the kind of week it's been. Was inundated with work-related tasks and things to do, so I just could not get to it until now, but better late than never, as they say. We are looking at my brand new Rumble channel, rumble.com/user/diamonddisc. I decided to set up a Rumble channel. I had a few people ask me about it. As it's a free thing to do, I figured it might not be a bad idea, so I did that and put all these videos up on there from the End Times Dates series just yesterday on October the 4th, so they almost have no views at this point. But anyway, I'm on another platform. You'll also find me on YouTube for the moment with my second channel. My first channel got deleted by YouTube. That was Diamond Disc. I had about 24,000 subscribers, give or take. The new channel is just End Times Dates, Take It to the Lord in Prayer. So thank you if you're subscribed on one of my channels. I've got YouTube and BitChute and Brighteon and now Rumble. And you can also find my Facebook page. That's got some videos on it too. It's got all the End Times Dates videos. So let's stay in touch. Definitely feel free to look me up on any of those platforms. Let's get started. If you've seen any of my video postings lately, you will probably have come across this one. It's gotten shared a little bit, and I put it up a couple weeks ago, and to me it just was obvious. That's why I didn't really do any commentary on it. I didn't really feel like it needed any, but I've had a few people say, hey, why didn't you make some comments so we knew what this was even about? The original video here that we're going to watch, I'm going to mute it, but it's just got some music underneath it. To me, it was very obvious what this video was about, because when you look at the Joe Biden on the left versus the one on the right, they're two totally different people. I sent this video to my good friend Steve Quayle, and he confirmed for me that they are not the same man. He even mentioned it on the Hagman report on the next day when he was on there, and he confirmed, again, that this Joe Biden today that we're seeing is not the original one. Now, I don't know if these are actors playing him or what, but I'm telling you, we're being duped. And it's very obvious to me. Let's watch this video and you'll see what I mean. I'm going to point out a few things. Okay, the first thing you might notice is that the one on the right, even though it's 13 years later, looks younger than the one on the left. How's that possible? The one on the left has a wider face than he does. And this guy has attached earlobes, and here they're detached. You don't just suddenly grow attached earlobes 13 years later. This guy has the shape of his eyes are different than this guy. And look at the width of the nose. He has a wider nose than this guy. He's pretty balding on top. This one you can't really tell in this picture, but I saw him give the UN speech, and in that, it didn't look like he was missing quite as much hair. You also notice the necklines are a bit different. So all that to say, it doesn't really matter because the president is a puppet anyway, the position is. This guy was obviously put in place for a reason, and I believe that this current version is an actor. The one on the left is the real version, in my opinion. Because that's the way I remember him, and the guy that's currently playing that role is a completely different person. That's my opinion. Obviously, you can have your own opinion. To me, I think the evidence bears out that this is a different guy. La Palma. My guess is you'd probably never heard of this island before a few weeks ago. I was aware of it. I hadn't spent a lot of time researching it, but I've heard people like Steve Quayle and others. I knew there were some Discovery Channel shows who'd done an analysis of what could happen should the western flank of the island fall off into the ocean and generate a tsunami that could then potentially impact the east coast of the United States. It's certainly fodder for science fiction films, for sure, but I do think it's a real threat. So we're going to look at that today a little closer and give you some background, not fear, but some background and some information, some things that you can use that you can continue the research. And if you're on the East Coast, it does behoove you to pay attention to what's going on versus being blindsided by something down the road if that were to happen. We're looking at Hal Turner's website, halturnerradioshow.com. He has been at the forefront of all of the articles and information coming out about La Palma. He was posting things on his website on September 11th or 12th, right when the volcano began to erupt and earthquakes and stuff started happening. So he's been there since the beginning, being the person out front, leading the charge as far as reporting on this information and giving facts and science. And I think he's done a really good job. So certainly keep his website in mind, halturnerradioshow.com. I'm a subscriber there. I would recommend that you subscribe as well. You get a lot of information for your, I think he said it's $1 a week or something. But it's a really good website, and if you're able to log in, you have access to more information than you would if you just look at the website at the public level. Plus, he also has some covert intel articles that he'll post. Hal, if you don't know, is former FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. So he has a lot of insider type of connections and does not beat around the bush when it comes to expressing his opinions about things. And I enjoy listening to his radio show. I listen to it pretty much every single night. He's on Monday through Friday. You can listen on the radio, and he's in multiple countries around the world. You can tune in through the website as well. So definitely keep Hal in mind. I think he's at the cutting edge here of La Palma information. And that's where I go first and foremost when I'm wanting the latest breaking news on what's going on there. One of the more important articles, I think, for Americans, especially East Coast Americans, is this article that he posted a few days back. This is dated September the 17th, but it's still relevant because from what I can tell, it's still true. He says that most tsunami warning buoys are offline or malfunctioning in the Atlantic Ocean. And I looked at it myself and pulled up tsunami.gov and verified that what he said is exactly true from what we can tell, at least, through the website. Here's the gist of the article, and then we'll look at tsunami.gov as well. 3 of the 5 tsunami warning buoys protecting the U.S. East Coast are offline, and a 4th is malfunctioning, leaving only 1 buoy in the Atlantic Ocean to warn Americans if a tsunami wave is coming at them from the island of La Palma in the Canary Islands. It is that very island which is currently seeing swarms of earthquakes, leading scientists to believe the volcano there will erupt, which of course it already has. If it erupts and the southwestern flank falls into the ocean, causing a tsunami, as many expect it will, the U.S. East Coast will be blindsided because 80% of our tsunami warning buoys are not working. Let's look at that. Okay, we're on tsunami.gov. If you want to follow along, feel free to pull up the website. It's a pretty handy website. I've got the DART systems checkbox on so that we can see where the DART systems are located. Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunamis. So kind of important. You can read through that by clicking on any of these stations here. If you click on the DART info, it opens up a new page, and then click on DART program description, and you'll get this page that I was just showing you. Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunamis, DART. Now you will see 7 dots on this page. Those are the reporting stations, ostensibly. However, of those 7 dots, I've looked at it a little closer and do agree with Hal that there are really only 2, from what I can tell, 2 of these 7 stations that are actually functional. That's a problem. Let's look at them one by one. Now, of course, we have the east coast of the U.S. here, and way over here on the eastern Atlantic is La Palma, right there. So you can see how really all 7 of these stations, if they were functional, could give a decent warning, especially this one, as this one is the furthest east. If we look at the DART info for 44401, you can tell with the red dot here, Station 44401 has been de-established and replaced in the operational DART array by 44403. So you can tell right off that this one, way out here in the middle of the Atlantic, is actually been decommissioned. So that one is not even an issue. It was replaced by number 3, which is this one. Now, from what I can tell, this one, number 3, is located closest to Boston. It appears to be functional. This is one of the 2 that, from what I can tell, looks like it is working correctly. You can see the water depth there is 4,060 meters. And this is showing a reading here. It's not really, it looks like a big wave on the screen, but it's not really, because here's the differentiation between the different meters. So that this October 1st measurement is at 4,014.5 meters. So you can see it's not really fluctuating a whole lot. From what I can tell, the Boston one does appear to be working, as is this one. And Hal, in his article, was very critical of the New York one. This one says Fire Island, New York. If you look at 44402, from what I can tell, this one, even though it may have at some point been doing what Hal describes as going into event mode almost every single day, basically crying wolf, the boy who cried wolf, saying that there's a tsunami every few days. That may be the case, but from what I can tell, it looks like it's working correctly. It's showing the water depth here at 2,656 meters. That's what this is showing, October 1st through the 5th. Really not much variation there. You can go down through here. If you want to go to this page, you can look at some of the different things. You can put in the different heights and events and analyze it a little closer if you want to. But from what I can tell, the New York one is also working. So that's good news. However, you'll note how close these are, this one and this one, to the United States. So by the time the wave, the potential wave from way out here reaches this far inland to where it hits this, there's almost no time. There's only going to be, what, an hour's warning between, Boston and this buoy and New York and this buoy from when the wave actually hits the coast. If you look at these other 4 buoys down here, let's go through those. This one says Charleston, South Carolina, 41424. If we look at it, it has no data, and it's been replaced in the operational dart array by 41425. So the Charleston one isn't even working. It's there, but it's been replaced by 25. 41425 is this one, Bermuda. And if you look at what's going on with Bermuda, it says 41425 has gone adrift. I mean, it's gone. They don't even know where 41425 is. So this one's lost at sea somewhere, even though they have the marker here on the website. So that's real nice, huh? Then you have 2 more over here. This one, Santo Domingo, 41420. This one has also gone adrift. I mean, who's running the ship here? So 41420 has also gone adrift. No data has been reported. So that one's gone. So now these 2 are both out of commission. This one has been decommissioned. And the only one that's left here is this one in Virgin Islands, 41421. And it has also failed to report data. It's got the red dot here. So again, that one's not working either. So it's not lost at sea, but this one's not reporting. This one's gone adrift and completely gone. This one's gone adrift and completely gone. This one was replaced by that one, which is gone. This one seems to be working. This one's working. And this one's been decommissioned. So who's running the show? You can see that we are completely vulnerable to a tsunami just based on tsunami.gov alone. Now it's time to show you the big scary map that Hal put on his website, and he was highly criticized for. But all he did was he put in a 50-meter wave into a website, and he mentioned which website it was, and I forget which one it was now, but he put in what would happen if the East Coast got hit by a 50-meter wave, which that's on the low side of what is expected by the computer modeling. And this is what it came back. This is what it spit out and gave to him. Basically, Florida completely underwater, and obviously most of the East Coast. Now, I think this is, because it's a computer model, they're pretty much never correct. And this is beyond worst case scenario, I think, but it just gives you an idea, even if it's a fraction of what's shown here in this image, you can see how potentially terrible it could be if the East Coast were to get hit by a tsunami. Now I'm going to play a few minutes from one of Dutch Sense's video, and I'm not claiming any copyright on this at all. It's completely fair use. I'm probably not even going to do much commentary on it other than to tell you it's really good information. So he's going to give you some background as to what could happen, and then talk about the things that we could do if you live along the East Coast. Some of the things that you could look for by using even something simple and free like Google Earth to determine the elevation of the area where you're at if you're along the East Coast, and what you could do to find out so that you can have a plan and move to higher ground if you need to. So let's listen into Dutch.
The papers show this portion of the island, with all the people on it too, unfortunately, breaking off, that this breaks and falls down to the west. Again, this is their simulations, not mine. And I've went and looked at the papers. I'm not going to pull them up now. Good luck finding them too, because it seems like they've kind of scrubbed the internet, but you can find it by just searching La Palma and add in the name of the researcher. Oh boy, what was their name? Oh, okay. We just search La Palma tsunami paper, actually, and you will find it. And I don't remember their name. Anyway, down here, this whole thing is projected that if the fissuring happens and breaks completely, that it would fall and look to the west. Down in the lower right-hand corner, you see it says ELEV, below where it says Google Earth. You might have to be full screen if you're on a phone. Good luck, you might need to zoom in. But ELEV is elevation. So right here along the coast, we're right at sea level, going right down to the beach, 0 feet. And then we go to the west, out into the Atlantic Ocean. So we go down right here, about 20 miles off coast. We're down at 4,869 feet. Go a little bit further to the west, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now the worry is that this portion of the island would break off and fall over to the west, down 6,000 feet, and that this portion of the island is big enough that it would fall out 20 or more kilometers, or 10 miles or so, out into the ocean. So 10 miles by 6,000 displacement. And then that, of course, is the worry that professionals have for sending the big tsunami over here to the east coast of the United States, fully going over the state of Florida entirely, because, I mean, how many places in Florida are above 100 feet? Well, I can move my mouse across central Florida right here, and you'll see we're right at 100 feet. Go over to the coast, 60 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet, all of southern Florida. Once you get up here, you start getting to 170 feet. But let's just say we're dealing with something like a 100 to 200 foot wave. And that's what the professional said would be generated at minimum 100 to 200. Think of the Japan tsunami for 100 foot tsunami. I'm not saying this is going to happen. This is the professional saying this. But with the fissuring going on, I've just got to talk about the potential. So we talk about pretty much the whole state of Florida. Only the highest points in Florida, in central Florida, where it gets a little bit hilly, would you be even okay? Maybe if it's a 100 foot wave. Anything over 100, even the highest points in Florida would be pretty much toast. Same with up here along the coast. Everywhere up to the first set of mountains right here. And that's about 100 miles inland, 50 to 100. Everywhere up the East Coast, pretty much. All the cities. I mean, New York, man, you're at -2 feet right here in New York. All of downtown New York, look at it, 23 feet above sea level. Okay? It just gives you an idea of what we're talking about if this were to happen. And in all those stupid Discovery Channel shows, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Dun, dun, dun. And then they cut to some commercial for like Nexium or something. Well, here we are. And now we're talking about an actual fissuring and fracturing forming on La Palma that's very impressive. Again, when you see something like this, when I see something like this, it makes me raise my eyebrows enough to want to tell my viewers, look, guys, it doesn't mean full fracturing and fissuring yet, but you might want to keep your eye on it just like I am. There's nothing much we can do about it. What are you going to do? Evacuate the whole East Coast on the potential of something happening? No. You would have to wait till it happens. Then that gets into what happens if it happens. And let me just take you over and tell you what I would do if it happened. I would be immediately jumping on and going and checking the National Data Buoy Center. So for instance here, I would go check the NDBC and see what the buoys are showing if this thing fractured and fissured, and I'd want to see what the wave is doing. So I'm going to zoom in on the area, and what you're going to see is something very odd. Well, look at our coverage on the planet, right? I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere out here, and we're at spots where you might not even want to know about a tsunami. But then here, where all the interest is, everywhere to the west of it, nothing. And you see the color red means stations with no data in the last 8 hours. I just call those stations that are off. They might not be fully off, but they're only reporting maybe once every few days, or if at all. So we don't have any buoys to reference if there is a tsunami. How do you like that? I'll tell you what, man. There you go. So, if a tsunami happens, what happens? The island fractures in half. Let's just do potential on this. This thing breaks in half, falls in, and sends a tsunami out. The potential speed of that is going to be at the speed of which the falling happens. So, if it's a sudden quick shift and everything breaks and falls in fairly quickly, once the tsunami is generated, it spreads at the speed of a jetliner, or the speed of a flying aircraft or so. So, anywhere between 300 and 500 miles per hour it can spread. Now, if you're in a boat out here, you wouldn't really even be able to tell. You might get a little displacement, but it's going to be a widespread wave traveling very fast. Once it gets close to shores of anything, whether it's an island or over here on the east coast of the United States, you'd start to see all of our buoys light up. And that's where all the buoys are here. But at that point, you'd have maybe an hour at most. Once these lit up, at the most, an hour. Think again, speed of a jetliner to fly from here to here. I mean, again, well, how long does it take to fly between two states in the East Coast? 30 minutes, right? An hour? So if a wave is coming in, once it gets to the shore, it then slows down to still very fast at 100 miles an hour. You remember the Japan arrival of the wave. There was people that were in cars that weren't able to drive away fast enough. But a lot of those cars were driving parallel to the coast, up and down the coast. They were driving on roads going this way. Like imagine this is Japan. They're going north and south, and the wave is coming at them this way. They're driving north and south. And you need to be heading away from the wave. And that's my best advice to you, is that if this were to happen, you would get news of it, probably online from a person like me or somebody in a chat room or something, because the media is going to drag their feet on it because they don't want to create a panic. And the panic would be, you can't evacuate this many people that quickly in 8 hours' time, or 6 hours, however long it takes to fly from here to here, that even if it's 10 hours or 12 hours, that you still can't evacuate all those people along from all of the state of Florida and all the way up the East Coast. So the media wouldn't tell you, I don't think. USGS would probably bury the information and they just sit there and wait till it gets there. I don't know. It's hard to tell what they would do, but I can tell you that you wouldn't have the time you need to get out if you waited for them to warn you. So you have to watch, I have to watch, we have to wait and see what happens with this. I don't think it's going to fracture in half, but I have to raise the potential that it could just because they did so many times in the past. And now that it's happening, the fissuring, it's significant. So if you live on the East Coast, if I lived on the East Coast, what would I do? Well, I would have an evacuation plan immediately set up that gets me out of the area as soon as this thing, if this thing fractures. This is so significant, I can't believe I actually have to say this. That everybody on the East Coast, from all the way up at Nova Scotia or beyond, at Newfoundland and maybe even going up to Greenland and everywhere up east, all the way down to Florida and beyond, to the Caribbean, the Bahamas. I mean, the people in the Bahamas, what are they going to do? They can't go anywhere. It's an island, guys. They don't even have, they might have a few hills that are that tall, but you'd have to find something over 100 to 200 feet tall, at least. Assuming the wave's 100 feet tall. Let's just say it's bare minimum, like they said, 100 feet. You would have to be able to go up above 100. How do you find it? I would use Google Earth. I'd go download a free copy, guys. It's free. earth.google.com. Download it, get the app, whatever you need to do. And then move your mouse or your finger or wherever you are over where you are, and it'll give you your elevation. And then you look around your area. Let's just say you lived in Richmond. You live in downtown Richmond. You got the river that comes in there, 100, maybe 100 feet. This is all we're talking low sea level almost coming in on the river. So you would need to get up above 100. Well, I'm moving my mouse around here. I'm seeing 190, 200 right in these hills right here. And there's roads to get there. So it's not like they're completely out of range. You would drive there, and you would try to go up as high as you could. That's what you would do. That would be my evacuation plan if I lived in the area. I would have to know how big the wave was, and we're screwed on that. There's no way to know how big the wave would be because there are no buoys all the way up to the coast of the United States. Once they get here, then we can kind of estimate, but you wouldn't be able to tell how many or how long duration or anything. All the information you would want to know that as it's coming across here is not given to us. And you go over and you see that over in the Pacific, they do give it to you, at least where you would want it coming across. That's what this whole grid is here, basically. And that, to me, says that we're operating out of a place of ignorance and out of a place of quote-unquote fear. And I don't like that. The fear that's been generated on this topic is because of the Discovery Channel shows and the professionals hemming and hawing about it publicly since 1944. But the worry is now here, and the actual physical activity is now here to warrant us to look into it more than just a Discovery Channel show. This is real life. This is something that I think that everybody would need to know, not just me talking about it. I think that every geophysics channel on YouTube needs to be talking about this. If they're not, they need to. Just to raise the possibility. Again, you need to couch that with, I don't think it's going to happen. Look, there's possible and likely. Possible is what we've been talking about for the last 30 to 45 minutes. Likely means it's getting ready to go down. We are right between the two, just like the other description that I used earlier. We are right at that middle point between a warning and a watch. We are right between. And I want you, if you know people who live in the area here, around where the island could collapse, and I want you, if you know anybody on the East Coast of the United States, the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican Republic, all the way down. Do I need to name all the islands? I don't even know them. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know the name of your islands, okay? But you see them all. We go all the way down, and then we go down on the East Coast of South America. I would say if it were to go in and cause a huge Atlantic-wide tsunami, once you get down past here, you start talking about more like what Japan, with the Japan wave, and it would be a few feet high that would come into harbors, and it would be less of a worry maybe here and here, and then maybe it would be even more of a worry all the way down at the other end for our friends down in Antarctica. So, it's a big deal. There's some simulations that show the wave propagating out also as far north as Greenland, which means that we would have to talk to the people in Greenland, Iceland. It all depends on what angle this thing falls in at, if it falls in. If it falls straight to the west, does it fall to the northwest, fall to the southwest? Does it somehow fall to the east and they're all wrong? Does it not fall at all? Does it slowly fall over the course of days or weeks? What if it slowly sinks and goes in? Then there's no tsunami. What if nothing happens? These are all the possibilities. So it could just carry on erupting, forming new chains of volcanoes. Here, let's go back over and show you again. It could keep erupting and form new chains of volcanoes, spatter cones, all the way down here and stop. It could erupt and carry on fissuring, which would then, I think, lead to that fracture forming that they're all talking about. it could go and stop and go and stop and go and stop. That's another option, I guess. And then it could just break in half and fall in. I mean, this to me is one of these topics that where you got to talk about it and you need to be concerned about it. I wouldn't be moving out of my house yet if I lived on the East Coast, but I would certainly get on Google Earth and plan a escape route for a tsunami that's over 100 feet high, just in case. I mean, come on. Why wouldn't you? You could just take a few minutes and go look up your height and go find the nearest spot that's a couple hundred feet high and be like, okay, I'm driving there. We're piloting the car, we're driving there. Then that would mean you need to get your bug out bags together, you need to get all your gear together, you need to get your emergency documents together. Have it all ready just in case. Which you should already have that anyways, come on. You should. For all kinds of emergencies, not just a tsunami. I mean, for severe weather, for any kind of disaster. Sometimes it's even just political disaster or economic disaster. You still need those things. So I'm not trying to lecture you, I'm just reminding you.
So there you go. I would highly recommend following Dutch Sense on YouTube. He streams all the time on Twitch. You can find him from right here if you're on his YouTube channel. It doesn't cost anything to watch him on Twitch. I think it only costs something if you want to subscribe so you can take part in the chat room and so forth. That's how he has it set up. We were watching that last video clip at 1.5x, so it was a little faster than normal, so my apologies if that seemed strange. I always watch his videos at 2x because they're always so long and I have so much to do. But I think his information is one of a kind. It's really good, and I think it's no nonsense, and he's not saying to run and panic. So he's trying to say that even though this situation could potentially be bad, it could also potentially not happen. And notice how he also said that most of the tsunami buoys were not functioning, which backs up what we were talking about earlier. I also found the scientific papers that Dutch mentioned in the video. This one is one that he specifically mentioned in a different video, Oceanic Propagation of a Potential Tsunami from the La Palma Island. This is dated 2008. So you can see this is a very long story going back quite a few years. This particular paper is very involved, 21 pages, and it's got all the scientific data here. If you want to read through it, I will link to it in the description box below. This one here is Cumbre Vieja Volcano, Potential Collapse and Tsunami at La Palma, Canary Islands. This one is a paper that Hal Turner linked to and I downloaded. I thought it was really good. This one's probably a better starting point. It's only 5 pages or 4 pages, and it's got some really good diagrams on what could potentially happen, and it's from 2001. So there's page 5. There's not much there. There's some good information here about Florida, which I thought that was kind of interesting. Florida faces the tsunami now parading in a dozen cycles or more in 50 meters of water offshore Cape Canaveral. Even after being weakened by geometrical spreading and frequency dispersion, tsunami from lateral collapses of the volume, dimension, and speed of that expected at La Palma could retain 20 to 25 meter height. Shoaling waves do not continue to grow much in water shallower than their height, so 20 to 25 meters probably reflects terminal height of the waves expected on Florida's beaches. So now see, this paper is saying 20 to 25 meters, not 50 meters. So there you go. Again, linked to in the description box. One other source for really good information is the Bushcraft Bear channel on YouTube. I highly recommend going there and watching his videos. He is doing an excellent job of on-the-ground reporting. He does an afternoon video and also an evening video pretty much every single day, except Saturdays. I think he's doing a good job. So kudos to him. Way to go, Bushcraft Bear. Feel free to look him up for more on-the-ground information. Here are a few more places you can go for more information about what's happening at La Palma. VolcanoDiscovery.com. I'll put this link in the description box below. They have an ongoing report as to what's happening there and update every day. So that's good information to have as well. So feel free to look at that site for more info. If you're on Facebook, you can look for this private group. It's called La Palma Volcano Updates and Discussion Group. 4,400 members currently. People on there sharing all kinds of really great information. I'm in this group. Also, you can find me on Facebook at Diamond Disc. This is my profile page, and you're welcome to send me a friend request. If we're already friends, then you will probably already see my posts on La Palma and all the other things that I post on, which are pretty much news-related type things. And then on the Diamond Report, if you go to facebook.com/thediamondreport, you can also like this page if you would, and I give updates on here as well. So the bottom line here on La Palma, if you happen to live on the East Coast, do not wait for the official government announcement that something has happened. You want to pay attention to alt media and even things like what's trending on Twitter, because people will be talking about it pretty quickly if something big happens. You don't want to wait for the traffic and the chaos and everything to start before you decide to start leaving where you are. You need a jump on the crowd. So you can imagine how it could easily turn into a Mad Max scenario where people are trying to outrun the wave and they're perfectly fine running you off the road or whatever they need to do to get out of the way. So definitely have a plan, know where you're going to go, have your belongings, whatever you feel like you can take with you in a car or however you're going to travel, but you need to get to high ground and just be prepared. You need to know where you're going to go. That's the main thing, and do not wait for the official announcement, because honestly, the official announcement may never come. We just don't know. As my good friend Anthony Patch, an author and an educator, says, you cannot separate the physical from the spiritual. So we've looked at the physical side of all this La Palma related stuff and what it could involve up to this point. Now let's look at the spiritual side. Up until everything happening with La Palma and the volcano and the earthquakes and everything, I'd kind of wondered which city was being described in Revelation 18. I'd kind of leaned toward New York City being that city, because the book of Revelation is talking about future events, which we are seeing play out now in our lives. So it's talking about Babylon is fallen. And there's a city that it's talking about where there is God's judgment that will be coming to it. And I thought, okay, it's got to be New York City from what I'm reading. And a lot of people will argue with you and they'll say, no, it's Rome. It's the city on 7 hills, which is mentioned in the earlier verse. But Staten Island is on 7 hills as well. Staten Island is part of New York. But in Revelation 18, it's a very descriptive criteria for the city that it's talking about. And if it were a job, if a city was being hired for a job, the job is the city in Revelation 18, New York City is the only one that fits that job description, in my opinion. Let's take a look at it a little closer. This is the verse in Revelation 18 that really caught my attention, probably 2 to 3 days after everything started at La Palma. It's verse 21. Then a mighty angel picked up a stone the size of a great millstone and cast it into the sea. The scripture that everyone seemed to be quoting at the time was Revelation 8:8. Then the second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned to blood. Notice it says something like a great mountain. Well, La Palma is a great mountain. So if it were talking about that, I think it would be more specific. But even more importantly, if you look at the timeline that we've been working off of here, this is the second trumpet. A third of the sea turned to blood. Here's the trumpets right here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think that the first 4 trumpets have to do with wormwood, and that trumpet number 2 is talking about a meteor, like an asteroid, not a chunk of an island sliding off into the ocean. To me, that would be more like a millstone being thrown down into the ocean. What do you think? Now, if I'm right about where we are on the timeline, and we're here, then it's not time for this yet. Wormwood's a few years off. Will we see that in our lifetimes? I think we will. But for now, I think this is a completely different context. Now, what exactly is a millstone? Well, they're used for grinding. This is what one looks like. Here's one here. You can see how large it is. And there. Now, this is a map that was on Hal Turner's website. It's a map of all United States-based nuclear plants. Note how many there are up and down the eastern seaboard that would be in danger of being inundated should there be a tsunami. Well, the thing that really caught my attention when I saw this was probably the same day that I noticed Revelation 18 verse 21 about the millstone. Look at the name of this nuke plant in Connecticut, which is in the New York area. It's called Millstone. There's a Millstone nuclear power plant. There it is there. There will be a link to this page in the description box, but you can just search for it if you want. Millstone nuclear power plant. I thought this paragraph was rather interesting. The plant has had numerous safety-related shutdowns and at times has been placed on enhanced examination status by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. In 1999, Northeast Utilities, the plant's operator at the time, agreed to pay $10 million in fines for 25 counts of lying to federal investigators and for having falsified environmental reports. Its subsidiary, Northeast Nuclear Energy Company, paid an additional $5 million for having made 19 false statements to federal regulators regarding the promotion of unqualified plant operators between 1992 and 1996. So you can see this plant has also itself been involved in some different types of corruption, which also leads into the Babylon, New York City discussion. Revelation 18. Babylon is fallen. After this I saw another angel descending from heaven with great authority, and the earth was illuminated by his glory. And he cried out in a mighty voice, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a lair for demons, and a haunt for every unclean spirit, every unclean bird, and every detestable beast. All the nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her immorality. The kings of the earth were immoral with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown wealthy from the extravagance of her luxury. Then I heard another voice from heaven say, Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins or contract any of her plagues. For her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Give back to her as she has done to others. Pay her back double for what she has done. Mix her a double portion in her own cup. As much as she has glorified herself and lived in luxury, give her the same measure of torment and grief. In her heart she says, I sit as queen. I am not a widow and will never see grief. Therefore her plagues will come in one day, death and grief and famine. And she will be consumed by fire. For mighty is the Lord God who judges her. Lament over Babylon. Then the kings of the earth who committed sexual immorality and lived in luxury with her will weep and wail at the sight of the smoke rising from the fire that consumes her. In the fear of her torment they will stand at a distance and cry out, Woe, woe to the great city, the mighty city of Babylon, for in a single hour your judgment has come. And the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, because there is no one left to buy their cargo of gold, silver, precious stones and pearls, of fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet, of all kinds of citron wood, and every article of ivory, precious wood, bronze, iron, and marble, of cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine, olive oil, fine flour, and wheat, of cattle, sheep, horses, and chariots, of slaves, and souls of men. And they will say, The fruit of your soul's desire has departed from you, all your luxury and splendor have vanished, never to be seen again. The merchants who sold these things and grew their wealth from her will stand at a distance, in fear of her torment. They will weep and mourn, saying, Woe, woe to the great city, clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in a single hour such fabulous wealth has been destroyed. Every shipmaster, passenger, and sailor, and all who make their living from the sea will stand at a distance and cry out at the sight of the smoke rising from the fire that consumes her. What city was ever like this great city, they will exclaim. Then they will throw dust on their heads as they weep and mourn and cry out, Woe, woe to the great city where all who had ships on the sea were enriched by her wealth, for in a single hour she has been destroyed. Rejoice over her, O heaven, O saints and apostles and prophets, because God has pronounced for you his judgment against her. Doom of Babylon. Then a mighty angel picked up a stone the size of a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, With such violence the great city of Babylon will be cast down, never to be seen again. And the sound of harpists and musicians, of flute players and trumpeters, will never ring out in you again, nor will any craftsman of any trade be found in you again, nor the sound of a millstone be heard in you again. The light of a lamp will never shine in you again, and the voices of a bride and bridegroom will never call out in you again. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth, because all the nations were deceived by your sorcery. And there was found in her the blood of prophets and saints, and of all who had been slain on the earth. Jeremiah 51, verses 54 through 57. The sound of a cry comes from Babylon, the sound of great destruction from the land of the Chaldeans. For the Lord will destroy Babylon. He will silence her mighty voice. The waves will roar like great waters. The tumult of their voices will resound. For a destroyer is coming against her, against Babylon. Her warriors will be captured, and their bows will be broken. For the Lord is a God of retribution. He will repay in full. I will make her princes and wise men drunk, along with her governors, officials, and warriors. Then they will fall asleep forever and not wake up, declares the King, whose name is the Lord of hosts. Now keep in mind that Jeremiah was written just before the destruction of Babylon, the original Babylon. So it's a foreshadowing of a future Babylon as well, though. So it's talking about the original city of Babylon, but this is also foreshadowing the Revelation 18 city of Babylon too. On September 14th, just a few days after everything started in La Palma, and I had put together the Revelation 18:21 scripture mentioning the millstone, and then the millstone nuclear power plants in the New York City area, I decided to do further research and see what else I could find on is New York City the Babylon of Revelation 18. This is a podcast I came across from 2013, and it's really amazing. We're going to listen to some clips of it here in a minute. But it's by Greg Lancaster Ministries, whom I had never heard of before. But I thought it was interesting because he's on Subsplash, and so am I. I'm on Lindley Oz's Truth Hunters channel on Subsplash, which is a website and an app. I don't think that's a coincidence. Let's listen to the first clip from Greg Lancaster from this podcast that I found from 2013. It's really important to keep that in mind because some of the things he's going to say was way before any of these things have happened.
Then a mighty angel, he says in verse 21, will pick up a boulder the size of a large millstone and throw it into the sea. And pause right there. I want to share with you a dream. I want Pat to share with you in the next minute about a dream that God had given him, spoke to him about a big stone, big rock.
Yeah.
Tell us what God showed you.
Yeah, I was in this beach house. On the backside, it was just lined with glass. So I had a perfect view of the ocean. And I'm looking up in the sky, and I just happened to look at the sun, and it's probably about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then all of a sudden, the sun just falls out of the sky and goes into the ocean. Just in an instant. I mean, it was not just gradual, it just fell quickly. And then I'm like, this is not good. So I'm like running around the house, like trying to get things up higher because I know these waves are about to come and take us out.
I want to pause for a moment because what he said was an angel came, he took a huge stone and threw it into the water to demonstrate what he's going to do to a city. Mm-hmm. It wasn't what he's going to do to the water, because water represents the sea of humanity, people.
Mm-hmm.
So we were seeing a symbolism of what is going to happen to Babylon, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that's what God meant for the dream. Okay, so
right.
I put those two together when we're talking about it.
Mm-hmm. So, I just run around looking, I was checking on my family. I went and checked on my mom and kids and wife and came back. And like I said, I was putting things up higher, and then I could see the waves coming in, and they just started trickling in, real low, but then they started getting bigger and bigger. And I just knew this was it. This is it. It's
Yeah.
over.
And so God was showing and demonstrating this is one thing. God will actually he took this big rock the size of a millstone, threw it in the water. It wasn't the water he was judging. It was this is what I'm going to do to the city. And so you see judgment coming down on a people, the sea of humanity in this context, and the people that was in this particular city called Babylon. Oh, we have so much to share with you.
So isn't that amazing? Where he's talking about the angel who throws the millstone into the water, the rock into the water, and these giant waves coming up and judging a city. And God does judge cities. You might remember Sodom and Gomorrah. So that does happen. Could that be what we are about to see with New York? If it's truly Babylon in Revelation 18? Something to think about. Let's move on to the next clip.
And so he goes on to say in Revelation chapter 18, and he says, after talking about the mighty angel picks up the boulder and throws it into the millstone, like the size of a millstone, and throws it into the water as an example of what he's going to do to the city. You hear what God told Pat about that particular word. And then he says, after that demo in verse 21, the latter part, this is what he goes on to say, after demoing it, what it's going to look like with this millstone and the sea. He said, with such violence, imagine an angel coming from heaven, grabbing this huge boulder the size of a millstone. Millstones are huge. They're huge. And throwing it into the water, but it's not a meteorite. It's big enough to destroy a city, but it's not big enough to destroy the world. Something like that, but it's big. And so he says, with such violence, the great city Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again.
Okay, the next clip.
And then we're going to have talk about a couple more dreams. I mean, literally, where the Lord showed me New York City being locked down. He showed me the military, how it's going to work with it, and how the mayor is going to work with the military, and how the Catholic Church played a role in this whole situation. And David Wilkerson's word about New York City. And listen, this is a sign to all of us that we want to pray for the people of New York City. We want to pray that people, that Jonah in New York would wake up and begin to tell everybody that God loves them, God's got a plan for their life. But if they don't repent, you're going to have to get up and get out of the city, because it's going to be a sign. And I wouldn't look back. I mean, if you're seduced by her, you'll look back. I don't want to leave. And it's like, it looks like some serious stuff is going to go down. We're just telling you what God's saying on our heart. If it's not the Babylon of Revelation 18, it fits the description. That would make me concerned. God is doing some great things. He's revealing to us. He says, if you'll listen to me, if you respond to my rebuke, I will share with you my secrets. That's what he says. But if you don't listen to me, he says, I'll laugh at your disaster. Proverbs chapter 1, right?
Yeah.
And so, hey, let's listen. Let's listen.
Okay, so how about that? He mentioned lockdowns. He mentioned the mayor. And he mentioned the military. And as you may or may not know, the National Guard is being called in to replace some certain people, some certain medical people in New York by the mayor, by the governor. Pretty amazing. And again, this podcast, 2013. I think this vision that they had was real. And remember, I was asking, and God led me to this podcast. I've never heard of this guy before. Let's listen to the next clip.
But then let's pick up right here. He says in Revelation chapter 18, verse 23, when he said, the light of the lamp will never shine again. The voice of the bridegroom and the bride will never be heard in her again. You have to understand, we just read in the last program, because he's destroyed. God has destroyed this particular city. Then he says this, your merchants were the great men. Your merchants of the merchants of the world. That's what he says. The merchants were the world's great men. Let me say it again. The merchants of the world were the world's great men. You can hear that. Their merchants, your merchants, New York City, your merchants were the world's great men. I mean, how many of these? There's so many great merchants there. I mean, great meaning the words that not godly great, but just great in the fact of, the Donald Trumps and the ones that are there that people, they look and they admire the wealth that they gain through their marketing concepts, their merchandising concepts of things. And it's not just, I'm just talking about, it's just known for that. And your merchants were the world's great men. So people say, oh my goodness, this is somebody from New York City. This is their business. You know what I'm saying? They will look, and says, and so he's saying, hey, I dealt with a city, and you're the great, you're not going to be great no more.
So yeah, further explanation about who the merchants are, and he even mentioned Donald Trump. A friend of mine brought up that the recent Hurricane Ida aftermath that flooded much of the Northeast, New York in particular, may have been a foreshadowing of what's to come with New York, if it is indeed Babylon. If it does get hit with a wave or some sort of judgment from God. Let's look at this video clip from the two preachers. Their YouTube channel is really good. And again, this is fair use.
They're trying to cut it off, but they're trying to get some rafts in here. People are screaming.
Look.
We've seen cars underwater, buildings flooded, roadways impassable and unrecognizable at this point.
I know some of the footage there near the end was from some adjacent areas to New York City, but you can get a really good idea of what the Northeast went through when you see some footage like this. And while we're at it, let's look at some incredible footage from La Palma.
Te vas a decir
So that's just some incredible up close and personal footage from that area. Got one more clip to play for you. Here it is.
So we want to get to talk about some of the things that God has shown us about the city. We already shared some of them. But one, the Lord showed me the city. The city was on lockdown. He showed me New York City on lockdown. And he showed me like the doors were being barred, like, you know, which is pretty typical anyway. You know, bars going, but these significant locked on both sides. And then how somehow the military got involved in it. I'm talking about scrambled eggs on their collar. And for those who are not in the military, it means the highest ranking military that's out there got involved. It was more like the Navy because it was a Navy type uniform, you know, admiral, whatever. And all of a sudden the mayor takes over and the mayor begins to handle things and pushes the military aside. And of course, constitutionally, that's correct, that the military should not be over citizens. But in that, also the Lord showed me some reason the Catholic Church, the priests in the Catholic Church were marching in ranks down on the shoulder of a road, just marching down. I didn't know what that meant at the time. I don't. And maybe you could pray about this. But there were like maybe 4 or 5 wide, 10 wide, and a big long line of priests, Catholic priests, and they're marching down the shoulder of a road, like a dirt side of the road, grassy side of the road, and there's a grave in front of them on the side of the road, and they march right over top of the grave. It's not holy to them. It just doesn't even phase. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh my goodness, you think about the Malachi prophecies and all the things that we've talked about and how all of a sudden this end time is like, what's going on? The first thing, and God loves Muslims, God loves Catholics, and God loves charismatics. You know, right? The charismatic goes, I know. Anyway, so, but there's only one way to God, through his son, Jesus Christ. But in the Malachi prophecies that we talked about, and you could see it's related that this particular pope was supposedly, according to the Malachi prophecy, is the last pope that there will be. That'll be during this time of ushering things in. And you go, whatever, you know, we'll talk about it. We'll share the prophecies, but, you know, God will have to prove it out. And it's like the first thing this pope did was go pray with an imam, pray with a Muslim leader. You have to understand, the Quran says that Jesus Christ is not the Son of God. And so to believe in the Prophet Muhammad and say he's right is to be denying Jesus Christ. That's why Pastor Assad is in jail. Mm-hmm. That happened in our faces. And now he makes the cover of Time magazine as the #1 man. And it's like, we're just so, the warning shots are being fired everywhere, over every battle. It's like, my goodness, we got to pay attention. You know, pray for the Pope, pray for Catholics, pray for Muslims, pray for everybody that they would hear God's voice and they would be saved. But know this, that's a huge sign of that Malachi prophecy. I mean, who would have thunk that in the way that transitioned, men's hands were all over this transition, unlike any other transitions of the Pope. Because the Benedict, the way he stepped down, you can hear all the details. He stepped down in a way that assured his successor. Mm-hmm. That doesn't normally happen. Normally,
Never happened.
You're dead. Mm-hmm. You're dead. That doesn't get us. You can hear about that. We got the Malachi prophecies, but we're talking. This is the day and the age that you're living in. We're going to begin to share with you other dreams and visions. One about New York City, from Mara Jane, as she shared about how God showed her the city in ruins. Also, David Wilkerson's words about tidal waves that are coming in and bringing great destruction, which represents the sea of humanity. And we're continuing to talk about, you know, is New York City, the city of Babylon talked about in Revelation chapter 18. And we want to share with you a couple more dreams and visions that God has given to us. And in the last part, or the last program for today, you're going to hear from David Wilkerson, the man who really labored in this city and anguished over this city and cried out over this city and loved them. And it's a powerful word. And it's just all going to make sense coming together. But one particular word that the Lord has shown about what's about to take place is, you know, great things of mass scale are about to take place in the world. Across the world, this is a world thing going on. But what he's shown us, America is going to experience some great turmoil, some real tough physical things are going to take place. If you haven't yet heard, you know, it's not just spiritual, it's going to be physical, right? Mm-hmm. You need to hear that. It's a word of warning. Also, convergence. If you haven't yet heard convergence yet, you need to listen to convergence. It's all these words coming together. But the city the city of New York fits all the criteria for being Babylon. There's no other city right now in the world that fits the city like New York City fits Babylon. Mm-hmm. And so maybe, we're going to begin to see what God is showing us in our time. It won't be something in the next generation. It'll be this generation that it comes to pass. But I remember, Marjane Hamilton in the Gulf Coast region, where she heard from the Lord in a dream. The Lord showed her, of all the cities, she showed her New York City. And in New York City, there was, she's walking through the city. She's in the city, but this is really a night vision type situation. And the city is burned down. It's in ruins. It's in total ruins. And God has his people, they're rescuing folks, basically going to find this believer and that believer and bringing them out of that region. And it was just total disaster. Her heart was broken over. She was sharing what God has showed her about the city, which confirms exactly what we're seeing about in Revelation chapter 18 about Babylon and some of the things that God has shown us. But also Sophia. Mm-hmm. John, talk to us about Sophia, and let's give a shout out to Sophia in Jersey.
In Jersey, just talking to her this morning. Mm-hmm. Sophia had a dream where she was going to her building in where she lived, and as she was going up in her building, she looked out of a window in, I guess, the hallway, the stair hallway. And as she looked, she saw that there was destruction coming, like a tornado, but there was something that was coming that was going to be serious. And so she finished running up the steps to tell her family members and realized that her daughter and her nephew had already caught the bus into the city and they had missed it.
So she saw the storm coming.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what we're talking about now. We're telling you the storm's coming. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then,
so you want to warn everybody.
Yeah. I believe the next part of the dream was she realized that the city was in ruin. And so she's walking through and she's realizing there's just chaos and just destruction and buildings just falling apart and people weeping. And so she's trying to find, the gathering, the church. She's trying to find this. And she walks into a church building, if you will, where there's people there. But when she walked into that setting,
traditional older traditional type,
right? She walked in. She saw people depressed. They were crying. They were just broken and just
devastated.
Yeah, just undone, really.
Right.
And then so she stepped out of there.
I mean, picture what you're saying and what God showed her. You're at the altar of this old traditional church building, and your whole city's in shambles. All this brokenness and destruction, and you're just broken. But what do you do? And there comes a time, I remember during the 5 hurricanes that we experienced, that you're so broken. I'm still scarred from that. You just don't know what to do. You just got to, at some point, say, I'm going to move on. That's where they are at this altar. They're thinking everything's destroyed. But she's actually, she's an abiding lady. She's a woman of God. And she hears the Lord. And so she's walking by observing all this. Notice that an abider, somebody that abides with Jesus, and if you don't abide with him, we have a plan for you at iabide.org, that she wasn't part of that.
Right.
So what happened when she saw that? She passed by there, and then what happened?
Well, she walked out of there, and she kept walking down this road,
looking for
the gathering,
church.
looking for us and the church. And she walked into another place, and then she saw a bunch of the church. She saw all of us there. There was peace. There was calm,
joy.
She even saw her husband, made eye contact with me, and it was like, God protected us in the midst of all of this destruction. We were all there together, and it was, a peaceful time. But it was a gathering of people that were all abiders, all people that spend time with God.
Was so powerful. She was looking for the ones that she knew, but there were so many people, because God's got for himself a people that's reserved, and they all found each other. So she's coming into this building thinking she's only going to find the ones that she knows. When she gets in there's so many people that God reserved for himself that are celebrating and joyful. What did she ask you? She said, where's my fellowship at? And you said they're in the midst of all these folks. And that's the whole thing. You're not the only one, Elijah. There's people that love God all over the place. And when she walked through that door, There were so many people that were, and so just hang on to God. Realize that God's He's reserved for himself a people, and it's an exciting thing. It's an exciting thing to know that obviously not destruction is not exciting. I'm talking about that. But listen, if my whole world stayed together, and every day was good for me in my flesh, but then I die outside of knowing God, the rest of my life is destruction, eternal damnation. Mm-hmm. If I gain the whole world and lose my soul just because I had no turmoil in my life, doesn't mean it was better for me to have turmoil and know and see God and cry out to him and be saved than to have so much comfort in my life that when I did die, I went to destruction and disaster forever. Listen, there's not a longer disaster than eternal separation from God in the lake of fire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Part of that dream too is that she actually saw her unsaved husband at the time,
right,
who was there, and he had made it, and today he's saved, following God, in love with the Lord.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and just remember, we're coming to the end of this program. The next program, which is in a few moments, 4 programs back to back. We are going to talk about a word straight from David Wilkerson sharing. It's going to just this is the Babylon. Whether it's not or not, it is definitely this one. Mm-hmm. And we want to pay attention. And he says, "Get out of the city, get out of the city, get out of the city." There is life outside of NYC. There's a whole bunch of life. The flyover territory, they call it, is a place where you can be blessed. We are sharing with you dreams and visions and asking the question in these 4 programs back to back today: Is New York City the Babylon spoke about in Revelation chapter 18? And at this particular point, just based on the text and the limited knowledge that we have, yes. Secondly, in the dreams and the vision and the word that God gave us, oh my goodness. And thirdly, so what do you do with this? You just go get out of the city, preach the gospel, be Jonah, give them a chance, let them know that God loves them, God's got a plan for their life, but write it on the back of your shirt as you're walking out of the city. You are assigned to them that we need to do something to turn to God.
EZ12.
EZ12.org. If you haven't seen it yet, we are assigned to you, and you could be assigned to them. And God does not want things to be destroyed, but he also doesn't want you to be destroyed forever in eternity. That's why he gave his son, so that you can be saved. And so we're going to continue that talk today. And what we're going to be talking about is hearing firsthand from David Wilkerson as he shares the prophecy over don't start. Is it start right there? Okay. Over New York, because he anguished, and you've heard us talk about, and you can find out, go to vfntv.com and click on the torch and just type in the word anguish or David Wilkerson. You'll hear him have this deep, twisting anguish over the sin, our sin, and the sin of the nation, and the sin of New York, and his passionate love to this last moment. And recently, the Lord has taken him to go be with him, and I believe it, so he didn't have to see this. What a loving God. Because he saw it and saw it and lived through it and lived through it and lived through it and saw it and lived through it. And I could tell you from my experiences, I've seen things and lived through it and seen things and lived through it. And it's real weird because when you're moving prophetically and God's revealing things to you, based on my experience, he's showing you things that are just destroying you on the inside, and you're just weeping and depressed and so sad, and you're telling people. But since they are not presently seeing what you're seeing, and they're actually doing the very things that God's saying he's going to deal with, and they don't see any clue that this kind of stuff's going to happen, they think you're crazy. They think you're just always, all you talk about is, Malachi 4, 5, and 6. Before the great and dreadful day of the Lord comes, he's going to turn the fathers' hearts to the children and children to the fathers, or else he's going to smite the earth with a curse. Yada, yada, yada. We've heard you. We've heard that. Yeah. See what's happened since 2008? Now we are up in these years. It's like continually happening. And so we have to turn our hearts. And then all of a sudden, you'll all of a sudden see that prophet who lived through all that brokenness and stuff, all of a sudden start getting a release. So when everybody else starts weeping, then the prophet who's already wept already and was broken already, and God puts a mark on those who were broken over the situation. That's what he says. And when that comes, he doesn't touch the ones with the mark on, not the mark of the beast. We're talking about the mark of intercessors and those that are God's, possessive God's people. And And it's like, so all of a sudden they're like happy. So why are you so happy? Did you see the destruction? Well, he tells us then in Revelation chapter 18, verse 20, that we're supposed to rejoice that this happened. Just rejoice. It's done. They just said no, it would never happen. They just dead set on not going after God and not turning their hearts over to God. As a matter of fact, they even brought out, and Jonathan Cahn has a book called Harbingers that deals systematically with what New York has done. And it's just screaming, going, you're going to be dealt with. You're going to be dealt with. And then the people are prophesying back to God. I know. Look how much agreement we are. Right. And blindly, we're prophesying to ourselves.
Wow.
With honed stones, we'll build that. We'll put that the sycamore tree and all the things that you hear Khan talk about. And that are biblical warning signs taking place. Well, here we are at this day. And the very fact that this is I can tell you from my experience, that I have this reprieve, that I have a reprieve in my spirit, what makes me think is like, watch out. Because the intercession's done taking place. People have anguished over you. People have cried out. People have done everything they could do before God. And that's what God wants. God looks for somebody who'll stand in the gap so he does not have to allow destruction. And he said he couldn't find one. But there's been many people that have anguished. But all of a sudden when he says, okay, all right, forget it. We've done everything we could do. I saw you intercede for them. Abraham, get Lot and his few out. We're going to deal with the city. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. I mean, so there's timings to everything. And you can't think, well, God's going to cry forever. He's not going to cry forever. There's going to come a time he'll look at Samuel and say, Samuel, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. I was using you to tell them what they were doing. This doesn't have to do with you. I love them and I have a plan for their life, and they've rejected me. Now give them what they want. This is what happened. And so here we are. I want you to hear then, in the context of this, because we're asking the question, yes, it does line up almost verbatim. Every single word lines up with Revelations chapter 18 about New York City, the United Nations, the kings, the merchants, the factories, the music, the musicians, everything. And the world has gotten drunk on her luxuries. And yes, and even her slaves, because today, these merchants, these leading merchants are getting their products made by people of other nations. And the reason why we're getting such a good price, we've got to ask, where does this come from? Who makes this shirt? And how well are they taken care of? Because I do not want to have their blood on my hands. I do not want to get a good deal because they got a bad deal. Mm-hmm. Remember the deal?
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully that's a related article here. People trying to seek the deal, calling themselves Christians while they're doing somebody in the context of that. But this is here. I want you to soften your hearts right now. I want you to listen in the context of all that we said. What did the prophet who was in New York City, David Wilkerson, who had a church in Times Square, who bled on the streets of New York and cried out, and Nicky Cruz is his witness and many others, what did he say what's about to happen to New York City? David Wilkerson.
Okay, I thought that was amazing. Just amazing information, especially given the fact that it was 8 years ago. And we could be looking at a situation, potentially, where God uses the millstone of the island of La Palma to judge New York City, Babylon. I hope I'm wrong. However, if we are truly in the final 7 years, which I believe we are, we just don't know. We just don't know. Remember, one of the visions that Greg said that he had was that New York was on lockdown and that the mayor would bring in some military people. Well, look at this headline just from a few days ago. New York governor says unvaxxed health workers will be fired, replaced with National Guard soldiers. I know the article says the New York governor, but the mayor would have to cooperate as well. This is from greglancaster.org, which is the podcast producer of the clips we were listening to earlier. Tidal waves surge, undertow, and the coming glory. The wise and the foolish. A wise person sees danger and prepares for it. A fool keeps going and suffers for it. Many lose their life because of being foolish and not listening to the warnings and preparing. It's amazing how clear warnings become after the crisis has come, but how quiet they seem to the undiscerning ear of those who, quote, do their thing, and allow life to pass them by, thinking they have everything all figured out. There are those who are religious who feel as if their works, what they do, will protect them, which in the end, they end up going out in the undertow or taken down in the surge, with the others who fail to acknowledge God. Finally, there are those who understand the Lord speaks and warns those who are His of what is to come, and it's their responsibility to believe God and prepare for what is coming but is not yet seen. Amos 3:7. It's interesting that in different places in Revelation 18 it talks about she will be consumed by fire. The kings of the earth will weep and wail at the sight of the smoke rising from the fire that consumes her. If you had a situation where there was a tsunami, obviously it would cause a lot of fires and things like that all around the city. And in several other places in 18 it says, "For in a single hour your judgment has come." It says it down here again. "For in a single hour such fabulous wealth has been destroyed." If it were a giant wave, it probably would take an hour for it to completely wreck a city. Because if it were a nuclear weapon or a series of nuclear weapons, it wouldn't take an hour. It would be done in just a few minutes. So I do find that to be a somewhat important point. Again, for in a single hour she has been destroyed. You know, we mentioned the nuke plants along the eastern seaboard and those in the New York area, Millstone and some of the other nuclear facilities. If a wave hit these facilities, you could potentially have Fukushima times I don't know how many, dozens. And the text here of Revelation 18 talks about never to be seen again. Will never ring out in you again. Be found in you again. Be heard in you again. Will never shine in you again. See the finality happening here. Will never call out in you again. So it seems like whatever happens to this city is completely wiped away. Like it can never be built back better. It's just gone. Like Sodom and Gomorrah gone, almost. That's the idea, to me, that it seems like Revelation 18 is talking about. Whether or not a giant wave can do all that, I don't know. But it just seems like that the connection is there, at least to some degree. I'll let you draw your own conclusions. But I find it very interesting and something that we need to pray about and warn those who are in that area that there is a connection. And I think we're seeing that here, a connection between New York City and what's happening in La Palma and Revelation 18 and the fact that we are in the end times now. I wanted to mention this in this video because it's something that just happened, and we had talked about it back in episode 6 and 7 of End Times Dates, and I wanted to bring it back up because you can see where we're headed. This is something Anthony Patch has been talking about for really the entire time of COVID since that started, and I don't want to risk my channel by going into this too far. You can read what the screen says. Micro needle array patch is what we're talking about, and I think we know what that delivers more than just what you're seeing on the screen. You can see a picture of it there. It's basically just a Band-Aid. We are there, folks. If you don't believe that this is the mark that's mentioned in the book of Revelation, you really need to do some further study, because the biological aspect of what's happening right now proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that the components are being injected right now with the first one of those things that you stick in your arm. The very first one was delivering those components. And you can see that everything Anthony Patch has been saying about this, such as that, and I used clips where he's talking about that back in episode 6 or 7 of End Times Dates. Everything Anthony's been talking about is coming true. Definitely become a subscriber of his, anthonypatch.com. You can also find him on Subscribestar. subscribestar.com/Anthony Patch, but just put a dash between the Anthony and the Patch. So Anthony-Patch. Anyway, I would highly recommend it. You can do that for as little as $10 a month. Really great information you need to know. Thank you all for hanging in there with me today. I know this was a little bit longer video. Took me all day to make it. And just, again, pray about it. And obviously we're going to see it. We're going to see what happens. Whether or not this is actually what happens and New York City is the recipient of God's judgment remains to be seen. We don't know. But I do think that the connections are there. I tried to show that to you in this video. And again, it's one of those things I really hope I'm wrong about. But I do feel like the Lord led me to this podcast that had these dreams and visions on them. I'm not one that have had dreams and visions myself, but I do believe that God speaks to us through these things. And to come across a very obscure recording from 8 years ago, when I happened to be looking at the scripture about the millstone and the connection with the Millstone nuclear plant in the New York area, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it would definitely be important for people who are living in that area to take heed, to be warned that it's very possible that the East Coast and New York in particular could be coming under judgment soon. Thank you guys for watching today. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.